The silent call for help. The rescue ship Hope Seeker moved quietly through space. It was big, white, and shaped like a long arrow. Inside the ship, the crew was calm. They were heading to Colony 9, a small human base on a planet called Elara 7. The colony had lost power 2 days ago. Earth received a weak signal asking for help. Captain Elias Juno, a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes, stood at the front window of the bridge. He watched the stars move past the glass. "We'll reach Colony 9 in 2 hours," said Ensign Tara, a young officer with short red hair. "Good," Juno replied. "Let's bring our people home." The crew had done rescue missions before. Usually, the colonists were scared, cold, and hungry. But they were always happy to see help arrive. Everyone expected this to be another simple mission. In the ship's common area, some crew members laughed and played cards. Others rested, watching old movies or sending messages back to their families on Earth. But far in the back, in the communication room, something strange was happening. Lieutenant Merrick, the ship's communication officer, stared at his screen. A faint, broken signal was blinking. He adjusted the settings, trying to make it clearer. The sound was full of static, but there was something else. Words, maybe even a warning. "Captain," Merrick called through the intercom. "You should come see this." Captain Juno walked into the room. Merrick pointed to the screen. "It started just 10 minutes ago," Merrick said. "At first I thought it was background noise, but now I think it's a message." Juno leaned closer. The screen showed lines of strange symbols mixed with English letters. The audio crackled. Then a deep robotic voice spoke, broken and slow. "Danger. Do not. Approach. Death. Waiting." Juno frowned. "Where's it coming from?" "It's bouncing between satellites. I think it started near Elara 7, but I'm not sure," Merrick said. "Whoever sent it didn't want us to know." "Could it be a trap?" Juno asked. Merrick hesitated. "Maybe. Or maybe someone is trying to warn us." Captain Juno went back to the bridge. "Slow down the ship," he said. "Raise shields. Full scan of the area around Colony 9. The crew grew quiet. Everyone could feel the change in the air. Something was wrong. Outside the ship, the stars kept moving. The silence of space surrounded them. Suddenly, the lights flickered. "Power drop," shouted the engineer. "Something's interfering with our systems." "Shields holding," said Tara, "but scanners are jammed." Then, without warning, the screens went black. For 3 long seconds, nothing moved. Then, boom! The ship shook violently. Red lights flashed. Alarms screamed. "We're under attack," someone yelled. 3 black ships appeared out of nowhere. Their shapes were sharp and strange, not like any Earth ship. They fired glowing red beams that sliced into the Hope Seeker's side. "Who are they?" cried Tara. "No idea." Juno shouted. "Evade. Return fire." The rescue ship was not built for battle. It had only small defense guns. The enemy ships moved fast, circling like sharks. One of the enemy blasts hit the engine room. The lights went out completely. Captain Juno grabbed the emergency radio. "This is Captain Juno of Hope Seeker. We are under attack. Unknown ships. Colony 9 may be a trap. Repeat, Colony 9 may." Static. The message never finished. Back on Earth, the screen showing Hope Seeker's live feed turned to snow. The operators looked at each other in fear. Was that a real attack? One of them whispered. General Ward, head of Earth's Defense Command, stood still. His hands were tight fists. "Replay that last signal," he said. The room fell silent as the warning echoed again. "Danger. Do not. Approach. Death. Waiting." Then came Juno's voice, cut short. The general stared at the screen for a moment. Then he turned around and said just one word. "Prepare." General Ward stood in the center of Earth's Defense Command, eyes locked on the silent screen. The image of static still flickered where the Hope Seeker's live feed had gone dark. Around him, officers whispered, typed, and stared in shock. 3 ships, one officer finally said. Stealth design. No known signature. They weren't pirates, another added. That was military-level precision. It was an ambush. The general didn't move. His jaw tightened. Then he spoke, voice calm but cold. They attacked a rescue convoy. No one said a word. That ship carried no weapons. It was marked for aid. They knew what it was, and they fired anyway. He turned slowly toward his officers. That was a message. They're testing us. Across Earth, the news spread like fire. People gathered around screens as news anchors showed the last few moments of the Hope Seeker. Families of the crew wept. Children asked questions their parents couldn't answer. The headlines were all the same. Rescue ship destroyed. No survivors confirmed. Earth demands answers. Was this an act of war? In the skies above Earth, the space stations went into lockdown. Satellites changed orbit. Defense fleets moved closer to the outer colonies. Everyone was waiting for something worse to happen. At the United Earth Council, arguments broke out. "We must respond with force," shouted a military senator. "We've been silent too long." "If we strike first, we'll start a war," said another. "We're already in one," someone yelled from the back. But the choice wasn't theirs. It belonged to General Ward. Inside Earth's orbital command ship, Iron Vow, Ward watched the attack footage over and over. His top officers stood beside him. Commander Reese, the sharp-minded tactician, and Admiral Halen, leader of the First Fleet. Reese leaned forward. "We analyzed the energy signature of their weapons. It's unfamiliar tech, stronger than anything we've seen outside the core worlds. We found wreckage from the Hope Seeker," Halen added. "Only a few broken pieces. No signs of survivors. No black box." Ward looked at them both. They destroyed the evidence. Completely. Reese tapped a screen, showing a map of nearby space. "But we found something else. A small energy trail, like a shadow. It came from the direction of Ilara 7 and disappeared into this uncharted region." She pointed to a dark section of space labeled simply Dead Zone 12. "Let me guess," Ward said. "No records, no colonies, no reason to go there," Reese confirmed, "unless you don't want to be found." Ward stood and walked toward the large window overlooking Earth. Clouds moved slowly over the blue planet. His reflection stared back at him, tired, older, but not weak. He pressed a button. The Fleet Command hologram lit up in front of him. "I want the Iron Vow, Lancer Squad, Talon 3, and the Black Hammers on full alert. Launch code red," he ordered. "We're not going in blind. We'll send a stealth drone ahead. If it confirms hostile activity." He paused, then said it out loud, as if to make it real. "We strike back. Full retaliation." The command room fell silent. Admiral Halen spoke first. "And if we don't find anything?" Ward turned to her. "Then we keep looking. They think we'll back down. They're wrong." Across the stars, in a dark part of space, a silent probe glided past ruined asteroids and floating metal. It was invisible to the eye, moving like a shadow. The probe passed through a cloud of energy, then locked onto something massive. A ship, bigger than any Earth cruiser. Alien in design, covered in black plates, glowing red veins running across its hull like blood vessels. Around it, smaller ships moved, silent, fast, deadly. Inside the probe's small AI brain, warnings flashed. Threat level, maximum, unknown forces detected. The probe turned to send the message back to Earth. But before it could escape, a red light appeared behind it. One of the alien ships had seen it. In less than a second, the probe vanished into sparks. But a tiny piece of its signal made it through. Back on Earth, inside the Iron Vow, alarms rang. Probe is down, a technician said, eyes wide. But we got something. The screen showed one image, a shadowy alien ship, huge, terrifying, surrounded by enemy fighters. Ward didn't speak. He didn't need to. Every officer in the room saw it, and they knew what it meant. This was not just about the Hope Seeker anymore. This was war, and Earth was ready. The massive warship Iron Vow drifted in low orbit above Mars, casting a long shadow over the red planet. Inside its command center, tension hung in the air like heavy smoke. Officers moved quickly from console to console. Screens displayed weapon systems, fleet routes, and most importantly, the blurred, partial image of the alien dreadnought the probe had captured before it was destroyed. General Ward stood at the center of it all, his eyes locked on the dark silhouette of the enemy ship. No insignia, no broadcast codes, no known design, said Commander Reese, tapping the image. But the shape is familiar. Ward turned to her. You've seen something like this before. Reese nodded slowly. Once, in the classified archives, an old report from over 30 years ago. A ghost signal from a destroyed science vessel. It mentioned ships with black armor and red glow patterns. They called them Draxians. The name dropped like a stone in still water. Everyone in the room turned toward her. I thought Draxians were a myth, said one officer. Stories to scare young pilots. Reese looked him dead in the eyes. They were real enough to wipe out an entire research team. No survivors. General Ward straightened his back. Then we need to know who these Draxians are, where they're hiding, why they attacked us now. He looked to Admiral Halen. Send out deep scanners. I want every relay and drone in the dead zone, and get Intelligence Command to dig up every file on Draxians, even the ones buried under 100 locks. As orders were shouted and relays were launched, something else was happening far from Earth. On the outer edge of the Sol system, a small black ops ship named Silent Knife moved silently through space. On board was a special recon unit, handpicked by General Ward. Leading them was Commander Lex Arden, a battle-hardened soldier with icy blue eyes and a sharp scar down his left cheek. He had seen things in the darker corners of space, things most people refused to believe. Coming up on the signal zone, his pilot said. Keep us cloaked, Arden replied, and scan for radiation trails. If they're using alien drives, they'll leave a signature. As the Silent Knife closed in, they saw it. Pieces of the Hope Seeker, floating silently like ghosts. A broken wing, burnt fragments of hull, a cracked helmet spinning endlessly. God, whispered a young soldier. Scan for any beacon pings, Arden ordered. They found one. Faint, buried under heavy noise. Arden raised his hand. Bring it up. Boost the signal. Through the static, a weak voice spoke. It was a human voice. This is Lieutenant Armin Rell. Hope Seeker crew. Not all dead. Some captured. We're being taken. The message cut out. Everyone on the ship froze. Arden slammed his fist on the console. They took prisoners, he said. They didn't just destroy the ship. They boarded it. The Silent Knife sent the coordinates back to Earth with the full audio. When General Ward heard it, his expression didn't change, but his voice became even colder. Now we know their intent. They didn't want a massacre. They wanted leverage. They took our people. Commander Reese looked uneasy. Why would they capture humans? What could they want from them? No one had the answer, but that question haunted the room. At that moment, a new message came in from Earth's Central Intelligence. The file was old, nearly 40 years, and locked behind security clearances so high they needed the president's authorization to open it. Ward read the decrypted report silently. Project Helix. Draxian contact. Redacted. First contact. Hostile. Unprovoked attacks. Advanced biological tech. No known government. Theory. Hive-minded predators. Study other species before conquering them. Status. Considered extinct after mysterious disappearance. Ward scrolled to the last line. Warning: if Dractions return, immediate and total retaliation is advised. Diplomacy not recommended. He shut the file. So, he muttered, they were just waiting, watching, testing us with the convoy. Commander Reese looked uneasy. Sir, if this is their opening move, then the real strike hasn't even begun. General Ward nodded slowly. And that means we only have one choice. He turned to the tactical map on the wall, now showing the location of the enemy dreadnought. Gather all fleet leaders. We're going to hit them first, before they finish whatever they've started, before they think they can toy with humanity. Just then, another message came in, from the moon base at Station Vega. It was short, urgent. Unidentified fleet detected. Incoming toward Earth orbit. Estimated arrival: 36 hours. Everyone turned to Ward. But the general was already moving. Prepare all forces. Activate Earth's global defense shield. Begin civilian evacuations in key zones. Commander Reese followed closely behind. Do you want to issue a statement to the public? Ward paused at the door. Yes, he said. He looked into the nearest camera, voice calm but strong. To all of humanity, this is no longer a rescue mission. This is not a misunderstanding. This is war. And Earth will strike back. Across Earth and every colony station, people stood up. Some were afraid, some angry, but all of them knew the same truth now. Humanity was no longer just exploring space. They were defending their place in it. The fleet gathered in silence around Earth's orbital defenses. The Iron Vow stood at the forefront, surrounded by the might of Earth's remaining warships. Behind it, massive capital ships hummed with power, and fighter jets prepared for their first combat flight since the war began. The atmosphere inside Earth Command was tense, but determined. General Ward stood at the command center, his hands clasped behind his back. The screen in front of him displayed the alien fleet. There were hundreds of them, scattered across the black void, their shapes obscured by the constant movement of shadows. The Draxian dreadnought was the centerpiece, its dark form looming ominously among its smaller fighters and scout ships. We're outnumbered, said Commander Reese, her eyes scanning the display. If they bring everything at once, we'll be hard-pressed to defend Earth. Ward's gaze never wavered. We won't let them get close enough to Earth. They'll regret thinking they could. A distant hum filled the room as the fleet's weapons systems powered up. Every ship, from the sleek, fast attack fighters to the heavily armored Iron Vow, was ready for battle. Earth had prepared for every threat, but this was no ordinary war. The Draxians were unknown, their motives unclear, and the world's first response was nothing short of desperate. Admiral Halen moved forward. We have no idea what kind of weapons they're using. Their technology is unlike anything we faced. Then we'll have to find out, Ward replied. Reese, I want every ship in the fleet on a separate vector. We can't let them group up. Our main goal is to disrupt their formation and slow their advance long enough for the civilian evacuation to begin. Reese nodded, giving quick orders to the tactical officers. The fleet would split into smaller units, each tasked with taking on a specific portion of the alien fleet. It was risky, but if they didn't separate the Draxian forces now, they would never stand a chance against the overwhelming numbers. The countdown to launch began. Outside the window, Earth's surface looked calm and peaceful, unaware of the storm coming. Millions of people went about their daily lives, but above them, humanity's last stand was about to begin. I want all ships prepared for long-range combat, Ward said, his voice firm. We're not letting them breach the outer defense zone. Hours passed, and finally the order was given. Earth's fleet moved toward the enemy, their engines lighting up the darkness as they broke through the atmosphere and into the deep void of space. The first wave of fighter jets launched, zipping through the blackness like streaks of lightning. Each fighter carried a heavy arsenal, but they were no match for the alien ship's devastating firepower. As the battle began, It was chaos. Draxian ships released waves of energy blasts, cutting through Earth's fighters with frightening speed. Explosions echoed through space, silent but deadly. The first wave of fighters didn't stand a chance. The Draxians' weapons were unlike anything Earth had encountered, powerful, quick, and precise. General Ward watched from the command center, his fingers tight on the railing. "Fall back," he shouted to the fleet. "We need more distance. Let them chase us." Admiral Halen's voice came over the comms. "We're losing fighters. They're too fast. The alien ships can move in and out of attack range in seconds. Their shields are nearly impenetrable." Ward knew the odds were slim. Earth was fighting not just for survival, but for the chance to discover what these aliens wanted and, more importantly, how to defeat them. He had been in countless battles. But this felt different. It wasn't just a war of numbers or firepower. This was a war for humanity's place in the universe. "Deploy the Manticore Squadron," Ward said, his voice calm even as everything around him screamed with chaos. "They're our best hope for taking down the smaller Draxian ships." The Manticore Squadron consisted of Earth's top fighter pilots, each one chosen for their skill and nerve. They would be humanity's spearhead, charged with taking down as many Draxian fighters as possible before the real battle started. As the squadron launched, Commander Lex Arden stood at the front of his fighter, the Viper. His hands were steady on the controls, his mind clear despite the chaos around him. He had been through worse. But as he looked at the enemy fleet ahead of him, a deep unease gnawed at him. This wasn't just another skirmish, it was an invasion. "Ready for this?" his wingman, Sergeant Cole, asked over the comms. "I don't think we have a choice," Arden replied. The squadron dove straight into the heart of the Draxian formation, their weapons blazing. The enemy responded immediately, firing back with deadly accuracy. The battle was intense, with fighter jets maneuvering through enemy fire, dodging explosions, and launching missiles in return. Every second felt like a lifetime. In the midst of the chaos, Arden's radar flashed red. A Draxian fighter appeared directly in his path, its weapons charging. Arden pulled hard on the controls, sending the Viper into a sharp roll, narrowly avoiding the blast. He fired back, hitting the enemy ship's engine. It exploded in a ball of flame. "Got one," Arden said, but his voice was hollow. The damage was done. Even with his kill, he could see the truth. Earth's fighters were outmatched. Meanwhile, back at the command center, Ward was receiving reports of the battle's progress. The news was not good. "General, we've lost contact with several squadrons. The enemy is too fast. Too powerful," Commander Reese reported. "We need backup, now." Ward knew that Earth's fleet was on the verge of collapse. The Draxians weren't just attacking. They were testing humanity, watching for weaknesses, and Earth was showing them plenty. "We're not done yet," Ward said, a steely determination creeping into his voice. "If we can't win this through strength, we'll win it through strategy." He turned to Admiral Halen. "Initiate Phase 2. We need the Thunderstrike and Tempest to target their mothership. If we can disable it, we'll cripple their command." Halen nodded. The war wasn't over. Not yet. But with Earth's forces stretched thin and the Draxian fleet closing in, the next few hours would determine whether humanity would survive or fall into the shadows of space. The Iron Vow shuddered as another volley of enemy fire struck the outer shields. The massive warship trembled, but the shields held firm, glowing a bright blue before fading back into the darkness of space. General Ward stood before the command console, his face a mask of concentration. Around him, the room buzzed with activity. The battle outside had escalated into chaos, with the Earth fleet struggling to hold the line against the relentless Draxian onslaught. Commander Reese paced nervously at the far end of the room. "They're adapting to our tactics. The Draxians are adjusting their formations every few minutes. Our ships can't keep up." "We knew this was coming," Ward said, his voice low but steady. "They're too coordinated. This is no longer just a fight for survival. They're studying us. Admiral Halen, looking grim, turned to the tactical map on the wall. They've already launched a secondary wave. More Draxian ships are entering Earth's atmosphere, and they're targeting our orbital defenses. We need to act fast. Ward looked at her, his brow furrowed. And the Thunderstrike and Tempest? Have they made it to the enemy mothership? They're en route, Halen replied. But they're encountering resistance. If we don't do something soon, they won't even reach it. The minutes ticked by as the Earth fleet continued to fight a losing battle. The smaller Draxian ships were picking off Earth's fighters one by one, their speed and agility making them nearly impossible to hit. The larger Draxian dreadnoughts were proving nearly invulnerable to the fleet's weapons, their shields seemingly impenetrable. Ward clenched his fists. Every instinct in him screamed for action. But his mind was racing. What was the Draxians' endgame? What were they after? This wasn't just a simple invasion. It felt like a calculated experiment. They were studying humanity's weaknesses, looking for chinks in the armor before launching their final strike. "Reese," Ward said, his voice sharp, "I need you to gather our best analysts. We're missing something. There's a pattern to this. They're too organized, too deliberate." Reese nodded and immediately sent orders to her team. Within minutes, a series of images, intercepted communications, and sensor readings filled the command room's display. A few moments later, one of the analysts spoke up. "Sir, we've noticed something strange. The Draxians are avoiding certain sections of our defense grid. They're steering clear of specific military installations on the planet's surface. And their fighter ships, they're ignoring civilian areas." Ward's eyes narrowed. They'd got a plan. They're not just trying to destroy us. They are trying to provoke us, make us overreact. What if they're trying to force us into a corner? Reese asked. "That's exactly what they're doing," Ward replied. "They want us to expend all our resources on pointless skirmishes, keep us distracted while they make their real move." He turned to the tactical map, his mind working furiously. If they want us to focus on the wrong things, then we need to turn the tables. We'll need to split their forces. Halen looked confused. "How do you propose we do that, General?" Ward's lips curled into a grim smile. "We're going to give them a fight they didn't expect. We'll give them a reason to take their focus off Earth." He turned to the communications officer. "Get me Commander Arden. Now." Seconds later, Commander Arden's voice came over the comms. "General, I'm listening." "Arden, you're going to do something reckless," Ward said. "I need you to take the silent knife and head straight for their mothership. You'll have to fly blind. Stealth is your only advantage. Do whatever it takes to disable their primary power source. We can't win this battle by playing their game anymore. It's time to take the fight directly to them." Arden didn't hesitate. "Understood, sir. I'll bring it back, one way or another." Ward turned to his officers. "Now, we prepare for the real fight." As the silent knife sped toward the heart of the Draxian fleet, the rest of Earth's fleet began its retreat, pulling back to the outer rings of Earth's defense perimeter. The move was a calculated risk. Earth's forces would appear to be withdrawing, giving the Draxians an opportunity to think they had gained the upper hand. But in truth, they were luring the Draxian fleet into a trap. Reese ran her hands over the console. "They'll think we're retreating. That'll leave the mothership vulnerable." Halen nodded. "It's a gamble, but we've got no choice." Far away, deep in the blackness of space, the silent knife made its approach. Commander Arden and his small crew were riding on the edge of a razor. Every sensor, every warning light, screamed that they were entering hostile territory. But they pushed forward, moving with the kind of precision only the best operatives could manage. Adrenaline rushed through Arden's veins as he steered the silent knife through a maze of debris and enemy ships. His eyes flicked over his readouts. The Draxian mothership was just ahead, huge and imposing, surrounded by a swarm of smaller ships. They were within range now. "This is it," Arden muttered. "We move fast, or we don't move at all." The silent knife zipped through the debris field, narrowly avoiding Draxian scouts and shuttles. Arden's heart pounded in his chest. As they closed in on the mothership, he signaled to his crew, "Prepare the stealth disruptors. I want their shields down for a minute." The ship's stealth systems, which had kept them hidden from the Draxians' detection grid, began to emit a low-frequency pulse. It wasn't much, but it was enough to momentarily scramble the Draxian sensors. Arden smiled grimly as the massive alien vessel became slightly clearer on his screen. He fired the ship's remaining missile reserves, targeting the engine core of the mothership. The missiles shot out, leaving trails of fire in their wake. Then, everything went silent. For a moment, it seemed like the missiles had done nothing. But then, an explosion ripped through the Draxian mothership's hull. The shields faltered. Arden saw the shockwave ripple outward. "Direct hit," he said. "We've got their attention now." But as the silent knife attempted to turn and retreat, the remaining Draxian fighters descended on them in a deadly swarm. Arden's eyes widened. He knew they wouldn't survive this. "Get us out of here," Arden shouted, hitting the thrusters. The ship roared to life, but it was too late. More Draxian fighters followed, raining down a barrage of energy blasts. Arden's ship shuddered violently. Then everything went black. Back at Earth Command, the tension was palpable. Ward stared at the tactical display, his thoughts racing. The next few minutes could determine whether Earth would survive, or whether humanity would fall to the invaders. The silent knife had made its move. Now it was Earth's turn to finish the fight. The battle raged on outside Earth's atmosphere, a violent symphony of light and sound echoing across the void. Inside the command center, General Ward's gaze never left the screen. The status updates were pouring in, and each one was worse than the last. Earth's defenses were faltering, and the Draxian fleet seemed to have anticipated every move. But Ward couldn't afford to feel defeated. Not yet. The silent knife's attack had been a calculated risk, one that could pay off if they were able to capitalize on the breach in the Draxian mothership's shields. If it worked, the disruption might buy them enough time to regroup and plan the next phase of the battle. "Commander Reese," Ward barked, his voice firm, "get me a full readout on the status of the Draxian mothership." Reese's fingers flew over the console, her eyes darting back and forth as she sifted through the data. The tension in the room was thick, each officer on edge, waiting for any sign that their gamble had paid off. "General, we've got a report from the silent knife," Reese said, her voice steady but laced with a note of uncertainty. "The missiles did damage. The mothership's shields are down, but they're repairing fast. Their secondary defenses are coming online." Ward's heart sank. It wasn't enough. Not yet. "We need more firepower," he said, his voice quiet, almost to himself. Then louder. "Prepare the Tempest and Thunderstrike squads for a final strike. We're not retreating. We're hitting them again." The officers in the room quickly got to work, issuing orders to the remaining fighter squadrons and warships. Earth's fleet was battered, but not broken. The enemy might have underestimated humanity's resolve. Meanwhile, Arden's voice crackled over the comms, strained but alive. "General, the silent knife is still intact. We're holding on. But there's too much firepower coming at us. We need to get out of here." Ward's brow furrowed. Arden was a seasoned pilot, one of the best, but the odds weren't in his favor. "We've got your position. Hold tight. Reinforcements are on the way." He turned to Halen, whose face was grim. "We've got a shot at this, Admiral. If we hit the mothership with everything we've got, we might be able to destroy it and turn the tide." Halen nodded, though her eyes reflected the weight of the risk. "And if it doesn't work?" "If it doesn't work," Ward said, his gaze unwavering, "we'll die trying. But we won't go quietly." The fleet began to reposition, moving into formation with careful precision. The Draxian forces, seemingly unaware of the surprise maneuver, continued their relentless assault. Earth's warships and fighters were smaller, slower, and weaker in comparison, But they had something the Draxians didn't: fierce determination. Ward's mind raced. This was no longer just about tactics. This was about survival, about humanity fighting back with everything they had, against all odds. "Captain Mason," Ward called, turning to the head of the Iron Vow's command staff, "prepare to launch a full barrage at the Draxian mothership's central core. If we're lucky, we'll hit the weak point from the outside." Mason, a tall, stern-faced officer with decades of experience, nodded without hesitation. "Understood, General. We'll give them everything we've got." Outside, the Tempest and Thunderstrike squadrons peeled off from the larger fleet, streaking through space with deadly intent. Their sleek forms were smaller than the Draxian fighters, but they were faster, human ingenuity at its finest. These pilots weren't just soldiers. They were warriors, and they were going to show the Draxians that humanity wouldn't go down without a fight. As the squadron sped toward the mothership, Ward's eyes remained glued to the tactical display. "Commander Reese, keep monitoring their shields. We need to time this perfectly. The Iron Vow can only take so many hits before we're too exposed." Reese's voice was focused, the tension in her tone giving away the magnitude of the situation. "General, I'm seeing a change in their fleet's positioning. They're focusing on the Tempest squadron. It looks like they're preparing to launch their counterattack." "Damn it," Ward muttered. He had known the Draxians wouldn't let the squadrons get too close. The mothership's defenses were formidable, and Earth's fighters had already taken heavy losses. "Captain Mason, we need to act now. Open fire." The Iron Vow fired a series of high-powered energy blasts. The first shot struck the Draxian mothership's shield, sending ripples through the hull. But the shield held strong. Ward didn't flinch. This was only the beginning. "We've got one chance at this," Ward said, speaking to the entire fleet now. "We hit them hard, we hit them fast, and we don't stop until that mothership goes down. We are Earth, and Earth fights back." With a resounding roar, the fleet moved into position, all guns blazing. The Draxians retaliated immediately, sending their fighters and weaponry hurtling toward the Earth fleet. But Earth's warships and fighters fought back with everything they had: lasers, missiles, and plasma blasts, lighting up the blackness of space. The Tempest squadron led the charge, zipping through the waves of enemy fire. Arden's voice came over the comms again, this time with urgency. "General, we've got incoming. Take cover." Ward's grip tightened on the console. "Do it, now. We can't afford to wait any longer." The next few minutes were a blur. Explosions filled the air as Earth's fighters danced between the deadly blasts from the Draxian ships. The sky was a tapestry of fire and destruction, but in the midst of it, the Tempest squadron found its mark. The Thunderstrike squadron, meanwhile, had begun its attack on the Draxian mothership's secondary defenses. A barrage of missiles and energy beams slammed into the alien ship, striking it from all angles. Ward's eyes widened as the ship's outer hull began to buckle. A cheer erupted from his crew. They were making progress. But the Draxians weren't finished yet. Their retaliatory fire became more intense, the ship's guns firing faster and with greater precision. Then came the unexpected. The Draxian mothership began to retreat, pulling back into the safety of its larger fleet. Ward's first thought was that they had failed. But then, something remarkable happened. The alien ships began to scatter. It wasn't an organized retreat. It was chaos. They were pulling away, abandoning their central formation. "Is it over?" Reese asked, her voice shaking with disbelief. Ward's eyes were still fixed on the screen, scanning the movements of the enemy. He knew what it meant. "It's not over," he said, a grim determination in his voice. "But we've broken their focus. They're running out of options. We've got them on the ropes." Earth's fleet wasn't out of danger yet, but they had done the unthinkable. They had struck a blow that the Draxians hadn't anticipated, and now Earth had a chance to turn the tide. The battle was far from won, but it was no longer a battle for survival. It was a battle for victory. The space around Earth had become a chaotic battleground. every corner of the heavens above the planet filled with the fire and fury of war. The Draxian mothership, once an imposing symbol of their alien superiority, had begun to retreat, though the Earth fleet was far from finished. It had been a desperate gamble, one that had strained humanity's resolve to its breaking point. But now, the tide of battle had shifted. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the Draxian fleet was on the defensive. General Ward stood in the command center of the Iron Vow, his eyes locked on the tactical display, watching the retreating Draxian ships. The battle was far from over, but the enemy was showing signs of weakness. The humans had fought with the sheer will to survive, and that had made all the difference. The strategic retreat of the Draxian mothership had left its fleet disorganized. They had underestimated Earth's resilience and the ability of humanity to fight back. And now, with their forces spread thin, Ward saw an opportunity, a chance to deal a decisive blow. "Reese, get me a status report from every fleet," Ward ordered, his voice calm but filled with determination. He needed to know exactly where they stood. Every ship, every fighter, was critical to their survival now. Reese worked quickly, tapping commands into her console, her brow furrowed in concentration. "General, the fleet's holding steady. The Tempest and Thunderstrike squadrons are engaging the Draxian flanks. Their counterattack has lost momentum, but we still need to keep the pressure on." Ward nodded, a steely resolve in his eyes. "Prepare the Iron Vow for a full assault. We need to close the gap and press forward. We've gained their attention. Now let's take advantage of it. Every moment counts." "We're taking a risk," Halen interjected, her voice measured but concerned. "The Draxian fleet is wounded, but they're not defeated. If we push too far, they could rally and crush us." "I'm not asking for a reckless assault," Ward replied, his gaze fixed on the fleet's movements. "I'm asking for a calculated strike. They're running out of resources. We strike now, and we hit hard." Halen's expression softened, understanding that Ward was right. "Understood, General." Outside the command center, the hum of activity was relentless as the fleet adjusted to the new strategy. The Iron Vow, Earth's flagship, moved into position, joining with the remaining warships and fighters. As they moved forward, the enemy ships that had once loomed like giants in the vastness of space now seemed to falter. The Draxians were no longer acting with the precision they once had. "Prepare to fire," Ward commanded, his voice unwavering. The Iron Vow's massive turrets came to life, releasing a barrage of energy beams that struck the nearest Draxian ships. Their shields buckled under the assault, and for the first time, Ward saw true vulnerability in the alien fleet. This was their moment. As Earth's warships pressed forward, the Tempest and Thunderstrike squadrons made their move, darting between enemy ships with deadly precision. Their speed and maneuverability were a stark contrast to the bulky Draxian vessels, which now seemed sluggish and off balance. In the midst of it all, Commander Arden, who had managed to survive the initial onslaught in the Silent Knife, came through on comms, his voice hoarse but triumphant. "General, the Draxian mothership is exposed. It's off guard. Our last attack made a dent in its outer defenses. I'm headed in for a final strike." Ward's heart skipped a beat. Arden had always been the kind of officer who went beyond the call of duty, and now he was asking for one final risky push. "Arden, do you have enough power to make it?" "Just enough," Arden replied, his voice crackling. "But I'm going to need some backup. The Draxians are focusing everything on me now." Ward clenched his fists. "Reese, get me the Thunderstrike squadron. They're going to provide a diversion." Seconds later, the fighters from Thunderstrike broke off from the main formation, moving into position to engage the Draxians in a deadly game of cat and mouse. Their swift movements pulled the alien fighters away from Arden's ship, giving him the breathing room he needed. "Arden, this is it," Ward said, his voice filled with intensity. "Make it count." "On my mark, General," Arden responded. The Silent Knife darted toward the Draxian mothership, barely dodging the streams of energy blasts being fired at it. Arden's eyes were locked on the target, the massive, twisting form of the alien ship growing larger in his sights. His mind was clear. There was no room for hesitation now. As he neared the ship, he fired every missile the silent knife had left, sending them hurtling toward the exposed core of the Draxian vessel. The missiles were a perfect hit, breaching the outer layer of the mothership's armor. Then, with one last daring move, Arden activated the ship's final weapon, a focused energy beam designed to tear through the core of the most fortified ships. The beam shot forward, bright and deadly, striking the Draxian mothership's central power core. A tremendous explosion rocked the enemy ship, its shields flickering before completely failing. The ship shuddered, its power systems crumbling beneath the assault. "Direct hit, General," Arden shouted over the comms. "We've got them." But the Draxians weren't finished. As their mothership crumpled under the assault, their remaining ships retaliated in a last-ditch effort to destroy Earth's forces. The battle had become a desperate race. Would the Draxians be able to regroup and continue their attack, or would Earth's final push be enough to break their will? The Iron Vow and its fleet moved in unison, launching everything they had left. Each blast, each missile, each strike was a defiant shout into the void, a declaration that Earth would not go quietly. The Draxians' retaliation was fierce, but their strength was waning. The explosion of their mothership had shattered the central command of their forces, and the remaining ships struggled to maintain order. Their fighters began to retreat, while the warships faltered under the unrelenting assault from the Earth fleet. In that moment, Ward saw it. The Draxians were retreating. The once mighty alien force was broken, their invasion faltering in the face of humanity's stubborn resistance. And then silence fell. The void that had been filled with the deafening sounds of battle now felt oddly still, save for the hum of the Earth fleet's ships. Ward stood tall, his gaze fixed on the screen as the last Draxian ships disappeared into the darkness of space. "Victory," Ward muttered, though his voice carried none of the usual triumph. It wasn't just about winning the battle, it was about surviving, about proving that humanity could stand its ground even against overwhelming odds. The battle for Earth was over. For now. But Ward knew one thing for certain. This victory would not be the end. The Draxians would be back. They would always come back. But next time, humanity would be ready.